We're back here on the Cape Cod Baseball Network. Andrew Selover with Joe Puccio, and we're joined now by a special guest in the booth, Zane Carlson. Zane Carlson during this fog delay to start tonight's contest between Falmouth and Chatham. First pitch tentatively scheduled for 7:30. Zane, a 3-year member of the Chatham A's. Zane, welcome to the broadcast.
Thanks, guys. Good to be here. Good to be back.
So, Zane, you played 3 years here in Chatham, but in 2000, you were a member of Team USA that played here at Veterans Field, and there's stories going around that John Schiffner would try to recruit some players there. Is there any validity to that story?
There was. And a funny story of that is, in 2000, I remember at Baylor, I was actually scheduled to play at Falmouth.
Wow.
So my first year, I was scheduled to play at Falmouth. And I was lucky enough to make Team USA. I remember I went to Arizona for the tryouts and made it. I was actually a little bit surprised. And just played with a litany of guys from Mark Pryor to Mark Teixeira, and it was really awesome. But I came up here, and still one of my best friends is Chris Young, who's now the GM of the Rangers, and he just wanted me to introduce me to Schiff. Got to meet him, and from there I was like, man, this place is awesome. Obviously, I walked around and said, if I come back, even if I make Team USA, I'm going to come play up here to get to do both, because what a wonderful experience getting to travel the world on Team USA and then getting to do this experience here. I didn't know I'd played 2 more summers after that, but here we are. Yeah.
I don't know how many people have played 4 consecutive seasons.
You could have done
at
it,
Veterans
right?
Field.
Yeah, could have done it.
That's wild. So you were here in the early 2000s, primarily as the closer. Did you think that was going to be your role for those 3 seasons?
Yeah, I mean, I really didn't know. I thought at Baylor, my first year going in there, the coach there then was Steve Smith, and he saw something in me where it was, I thought I'd be a starter. Of course, a starter in high school, right? Everybody is.
Yeah.
And then, the first time I walked into the Baylor, building, he's like, "You're the closer." And then going into my sophomore year, I thought maybe there's a chance I'm a starter, and there just never really was. But I was a gas it up for 1 inning, and I could see in college where it could fade after 5 or 6 innings. So going deep in the game wasn't necessarily my thing. I was, as you see anyhow, it's max effort, go at them, and so closing fit me in high school, really, in summer ball, and then college, and then the Cape too.
If you're just joining us, we're in a fog delay here to start the contest between Falmouth and Chatham. Both managers are down on the field with all 3 umpires tonight. Just to the left of home plate, talking about when this game might get started. Currently slated for a 7:30 first pitch, but we're joined by a 3-year member of the Chatham A's, Zane Carlson, in the booth. Zane, what was it about Cape Cod that brought you back every year?
Just the atmosphere and all the fans, and then just the competitive nature of the how good the league is. I mean. Also, it's always the aspect of getting seen and being seen. And, I wasn't a huge draft guy, just being a little bit short and smaller guy. But I had, I had a good chance, and this gave me a place to get looked. But also, just the host families and really Coach Schiffner was one of the biggest things. And I remember just the whole crew when I was here. I wanted to come back, and gosh, what a good experience for any college kid. Shoot. It's awesome.
Schiff is here tonight, and we talked to him pregame. He said this is arguably the worst week of fog he's ever seen in Chatham. What were some of your experiences with the fog with the Anglers?
I remember looking back. I can't remember a specific game where it was like this necessarily, but I remember a lot of these delays, where you're going, are we going to play, are we not, just up in the air. And I still find it fascinating being from Texas. My family was out here in Chatham hanging out this afternoon, and it was totally fine. And then at, 4 or 5 o'clock, comes in, and you're like, so then we basically Googled, like, what is fog? Like, how does it come in? And how does it get like this? Like, I got to remember, like, oh, yeah, it's just totally random and spontaneous. But, I do remember some of these games like this just being in limbo. But I think, like you mentioned earlier, the starter, it's harder for him to know, what's going to happen and when you're going to get out there and get hot and be ready. But for closer, I'd sit in that bullpen and just kind of wait till it was my turn. But it's amazing weather pattern here. And we used to have rain delays too, and we would just, endure through it.
Have fun.
What are you going to do, right?
So you talked a little bit about Coach Schiffner. What was it like playing for such a legendary coach?
Oh, it was just, like I said, when I came up here, and I had met him, and I just had that feeling that we hit it off and that I wanted to play for him. And he just had this intensity, and really he believed in me. We talked about earlier, we had David Bush came back for the next year when I was there, and he still put me in at closer. And I'm like, I'm not anything like this guy. He's throwing like 98, and he still kept me out there as a closer, and we were really great. But he had a really belief system in me, and I just appreciated that about him, and he just had a good spirit. I mean, always positive, and then he was also hard on us when needed to be. I mean, he played to win. And that's what I liked about Chatham too. I think that's what Chris Young had told me, is like they play to win. I mean, this is a showcase sometimes, but he wanted to win games. I mean, he'd get on us, and I liked his spirit in terms of that. Like, you're here to get seen and play well, but also we play to win. We're not here just to a lot of some guys come up here and just it's all about them and not the team.
Right.
And he really created a great team winning atmosphere, which is what baseball's got to be. Otherwise, it's all individuals. It's tougher, and then it's we had 1 year where if you're not having a good year, it's tougher to stay focused and stay in the game, and then for you to play well. So anyway, he created a good atmosphere for that winning atmosphere.
So you were here with the 2002 team, and the 2002 Chatham A's were documented in the book, The Last Best League by Jim Collins. Do you remember being followed around by an author? Like, what's that experience like?
Well, that's funny because I also, not only that, I also went to the premiere of the Summer Catch movie.
Oh,
was being filmed right
right.
then, too. So it was kind of like this Twilight. Like, we got a book getting written about us, and then we had the movie come out, too. So it was kind of like, gosh, this is kind of a big deal. So I've read the book. Gosh, it's been a long time. But I do remember him traveling with us. And you kind of wondered when he was on the road, you're like, do I say this, don't say that? And he's just kind of like just hanging out. And he'd go hang out with us and get to know the players, really well. And so he he did write it. I think he did a good job. I mean, again, I need to reread it probably, but that is interesting and just fascinating that somebody would write that. But no, that was really cool. I had actually forgotten about that.
Yeah, one of the parts in that book is that Jim Collins talks about thunder and lightning with you and David Bush. What was it like being in that 1-2 punch out of the pen?
Well, it was great. The starter gets us to through 6 or 7 innings, and it was even better. But no, it was really fun, and I got to go to the Red Sox. I'm obviously from Texas and Rangers fan, so went to the Red Sox and Rangers games, which were awesome. Took my kids to that, and I saw David Bush. Obviously as a pitching coach, and so it was cool to see him out there and recollect on that experience. But no, it was great. I mean, I didn't know that he'd come back from Wake Forest, and then we were both there, and it was kind of just this really worked out well, and he was awesome, and it was just a fun experience to pitch behind him. And have him in front of you is amazing.
And that's such a rarity in the Cape League now, because we see players come in and leave after a week. We've seen probably over 50 different players come to Chatham this year. So
wow.
When you have a team of 26 guys the entire season, how did you guys build camaraderie and knowing that you were going to be here for the full summer? How did you just create those lifelong friendships?
I was just texting with a couple guys when I was coming out here that I still played with. One is Ryan Johnson, and he played at Wake Forest too, and was a great player, great outfielder, first baseman. I think just knowing you had the summer together, and we would hang out, and some people were your roommate. I mean, if you had a host family or whatever, you'd get to know them very well, probably more than you wanted to. But being at the ballpark all the time, we'd go eat lunch together, and like these guys down here, over here, playing, all kinds of games, and you're just hanging out. I mean, you have so much time together that, and you've got to choose that. Again, I think they have a good winning environment and create that just from a atmosphere, just that's created from the top down.
Once again, for those just joining us, we're still in a bit of a fog delay to get started here at Veterans Field. Joe Puccio with me. I'm Andrew Selover, and we're joined by Zane Carlson up in the booth. Current start time for 7:30 here at Veterans Field. The meeting just ended between the two managers and the umpires, who are walking off the field with some thick fog returning. Zane, we talked, Joe and I, a little bit about it pregame. Yesterday was the first scheduled off day for this summer for these players that they actually succeeded in keeping an off day just due to fog outs and rainouts and what have you. What were some of your favorite memories off the field just around Cape Cod? What were your favorite things to do here?
Well, it's funny. We'd go into Fenway yesterday. We'd get 3 or 4 guys in a car. If the Red Sox were playing, that's generally what we would do, is go to Boston, go to the Red Sox team. Like we didn't get enough baseball in the summer, right? We needed to go to a game. Like, what the heck? So yeah, we would literally. I mean, I remember going to Boston, and we'd go do that, hang out just to see the city, and then come back or whatever the next day. That was one of my memories. Other than that, though, no. I mean, we would all just kind of hang out at somebody's house and play cards or something, and just again hang out with the guys and get to know each other better. Yeah, just group atmosphere of we'd hang out. But that was my best memory. I think was just that we would get in the car and somebody would have a Honda or something. We'd drive to Boston.
That's awesome.
These adventures of at that age were pretty awesome.
How similar does this place look to you as it was in the early 2000s?
Amazingly so. I see they got some new stands and kind of redid that area. But the field looks great. It really does. I don't know that there's much has changed, but it's still awesome. I mean, what a great atmosphere this is.
Are there things that you learned as a player here in Chatham that you apply to your everyday life now as an adult?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, getting the real job and doing all that. I think just endurance. I mean, all through sports and it's funny. I'm in sales now and just being a closer. I remember my first interview and they were talking about how do you think you're going to overcome failure or whatever, and it's like, well, go back and look at how many blown saves I had, and then next day you're back in there again. Kind of go back to Chef. It's like you blow the lead that day, and then you're back in there the next game. I remember one of the wins we had. We were in the championship game against Wareham in a raining, swinging bunt, and we got second that year. And the kid beat out a single, and you're going home. It's all over, and but you got to pick yourself up. So, thing from that is you pick yourself back up, get back on your feet. Don't let hard things or failure get you down. That's really at least my thing I learned from baseball in general, not just here, but in playing minor league ball and in college as well. So
from a baseball perspective, some of these guys on this year's team have talked about it. The difference between college baseball, where you're playing 3-4 games a week, coming up here playing 6, sometimes even 7 games a week. How much of a difference does that take on in terms of a toll on your body and the preparation that you have to go through?
I think it can be somewhat significant. I mean, I didn't find it that difficult.
Yeah.
Just in what I did was you never knew what day you were going to play. Period. Whether that be college or out here as a relief pitcher. But I think the hitters generally would feel that more. But I think in 19, 20, 21, it's not that big of a toll necessarily, in my opinion. Maybe more of a mental grind. You see some of these major leaguers that play 162 games, like get a day off, and you go to the game, and you're like, well, why are they doing that? And these managers know way better than I do, right? Sometimes you just need a day of mental recuperation of, you went 0 for 4 or you're 0 for your last 8, and just sit over here and kind of just collect yourself and watch the game and regroup, I guess, would be my deal on that. But physically, I don't think it is, but more of a mental grind for these guys.
For people that might be coming to Cape Cod or ask you about your experience or whether they should come visit, what do you tell them?
I would tell them 1,000%. I mean, again, one of the best experiences of my life, where I wouldn't have tried to come back as many times as I did for some of the longevity records that I have. But there's really nothing negative I can say about it. I mean, I was talking to my kids, just the 25-hour drive up here. I have all these memories of just getting in the car, and I stopped and picked up a buddy in Alabama and drove all the way up here, and we went to New York and to Baltimore and went to Camden, and anyway, just these memories of college that kind of come back when you're coming up here and talking to your kids about it, and just all these wonderful people that are here. I mean, I saw Bob Sherman and I'll see Schiff in a little bit and say hi to these folks, but just good people, and the whole league is run so well. And shoot, you get to get seen by professional scouts and gives you a chance. I mean, I think that helped me at least get a shot at playing Major League Baseball. That's all why we're here.
How cool is it to bring your kids to this place?
It's pretty cool. Like, we waited. We have a 10-year-old and an 11-year-old who are back here, and we waited to come up here. We've been talking about it for 3 or 4 years, and really wanted to create an experience where they'll remember it. Number one. And that they can take in and absorb. And I'm coaching an 11-year-old team, and I have a 10-year-old team we help out with. And it happens that Chris Young's kid is on our team as well, and which is all just very cool. But to create just a memory for them and to be back and see people, it's super special. I wish I had done it earlier, but it's great timing here.
Zane, thanks so much for the time. Thanks for joining us. We're
Thank y'all.
still counting down towards the 7:30 start time as the fog continues to get worse here at Veterans Field. So we'll see if we have baseball in the books tonight between Chatham and Falmouth still in a rain delay. That was Zane Carlson, though. Zane, thanks so much for the time.